His truth is mine. Wow, that was nice, stirring music. I really appreciate that. So I'm American, so sometimes these old patriotic American songs make the ride kind of exciting. So speaking of the ride, just had some good news that my son, he really wants to start riding with me. He just started junior high, and so, he's starting to get that bug that he wants to start riding together. So that's kind of fun. So we have these sort of rental bikes, I guess you can use. And there's a place that's, the city that you can get them for free, but they're only available during the week. But my son obviously goes to school during the week, so we can't use the free bikes. And there's these city bikes, but the problem with the city bikes is they're so expensive. You go for an hour and it's like, 10 or $15 just to go for an hour long ride. If you spend $200 for a new bike or 250, that's not very many rides before the city bike buys you a new bike. So that seems silly to use these city bikes. And also the city bikes are electric bikes. And my son doesn't like electric bikes. You know, he says something, and it's the same thing that I feel too, that it's kind of cheating, you know, that it's not you powering it. Like he puts barely any effort at all, and he's well beyond me. But when I bike, it's just me. So I know I've earned this bike ride. I've put the effort in. My legs are tired. I've gotten a really good workout in. If I climb a hill, it's through my effort, not the electric. I see the value of electric bikes. I really do. There's some people who are really old or not really good shape, or they live in a hilly area where electric bike is kind of essential because you can just turn off the electric or turn it way down. But you need that little bit of help when the hill is just really steep. You're not going to get up it any other way. Or you go incredibly long distances. So I can see that. If I'm on a big long trip and I need to go, long distance very fast. So here's a nice break. I always don't know, should I film these breaks? Excuse me. Like, is it kind of boring for you? You get this nice view for a couple of minutes. It's like a nice picture, kind of an idea where we are. And I'm moving around a little bit, but, these breaks may be boring, but they're like natural breaks. They're naturally part of the ride. So I thought maybe you'd like to have this. Yeah. This film was very, very dark, by the way. That I thought I used the DJI filter, but looking back at it, it was very, very dark. So, a new thing we're trying here is I'm trying to use the DJI actual app. And so built into the app, you can go right to the kind of DJI camera you have and use its filter. And that generally works pretty well. The problem comes when, when you try to add sounds. DJI doesn't have a record function. But if I bring in a voice file that's really long, it says it only can be like 10 minutes long, which seemed to me kind of, defeats the purpose. So anyway, let's get back to my son really wants to ride bikes with me. So now the problem is, what kind of bike should I get him? He's not that into it yet. I don't know if he'll keep up with it. So I have a Tern Node D8, and I really love this bike. I wish, though, that it had a belt driven instead of chain, because chains can rust and they take maintenance, and they get dirty and things like that. But I love a belt driven, and I love like, all right, yeah. So, like I would rather have an internal hub, an IH model, and I know Tern makes them, but they don't seem to be available in South Korea. And also, Terns aren't terribly expensive. But, instead of $1,000 bike, I think my son would only need like a couple of $100 bike just to get him started. And if he really likes biking, hey, I'm all for getting him as nice a bike as he wants. It's really good exercise, good to forget about studying for a while, good for your wind. In previous episodes, I have talked about that, that all the benefits of biking, and they really are true. I get off my bike and my back feels better, my legs feel better, my mood is better. I think clearer. I've breathed in fresh air, got to meet some people and say hello, usually a nice meal out. So if my son wants to be a part of all that, hey, I'm all for that. So that's great to me. But again, what bike? I know that Korea, has some pretty good bikes. They have a brand called Samchuli, and what's the other brand? I can't remember it. Something Sport. I can't remember the name. But they're very Korean brands. They're heavy metal bikes. Decent bikes for knocking around with. Not professional. They're not the lightest. They're not the best quality. They'll probably rust in 5 years. But I keep my bikes totally at home. I never store them outside. So that should be okay. And my son's a pretty big guy. So I think he can lift it up no problem. I think I want to get him a folding bike just because we have a really big apartment, but the entryway is not that big. So I have a place I store my bike, which is a folding bike, and there's a spot right behind it. So 2 folding bikes should fit there just fine. But if we have a full-size bike, that's the problem we run into, is where do we keep it? I don't like to keep them outside. I don't like to keep them in the hallway. I certainly don't store them outside. It's not a huge problem for stealing bikes in South Korea, but it is a factor. It does happen. I've had friends of mine had their bikes stolen. So, and it's just so nice to store them inside. When the winter comes, there's a place for them all the time. My Tern has gone through 2 winters now. 2 or 1? 2 or 1. No, 1 winter. Sorry. So it's been through a winter already. So I can see all the ice and snow and all the damage that would do to my bike, the chain rusting, all these problems. My bike's totally dry, safe, comfortable inside its little space. We never even noticed that it was there, So, foldable bike. My son is also, he's very sensitive to the way it looks. It's got to be a certain color. And, he doesn't want, an embarrassing looking bike. So for him, how the bike looks is going to be very important. If he sees his friends, he wants to, have it look right. So he wanted me to order on the internet. But I was thinking, well, shouldn't I support a local bike shop, which I really believe in? Also with a bike shop, they put it together, they make sure it's all working. If I ordered something from the internet, maybe it'll come in pieces. I don't want to put it together. I don't want to go through all that. And you probably have to bring it to a bike shop anyway to make sure everything works okay. And there's also accessories you might want to get with it. I'm not sure what at the moment. So I think I need a foldable, maybe a nice Korean foldable. Doesn't have to be the greatest quality. Problem is, in Korea, I don't know how to shop for a bike. When I very first moved to Korea, I lived in a really small town called Naju. And, great place for biking. I didn't know where to go for a bike, so I just went to the local place. And again, there's not many foreigners there. So they were kind of excited to have a foreign person, buy a bike from them. So they offered me all these free things, all these upgrades just to buy a bike. And then the owner came in and he wasn't unhappy, but he wasn't too happy. And he says, I never gave away so many free things just to buy a bike. And so I was very understanding with him. And I said, you're right. And so I said, let me support you. So I said, I just need these couple of things. And I think I remember taking a light, something simple. And I said, how about if I just take this and I'll buy the bike? He says, oh, okay. And he didn't say it, but I'm sure he was happy with that. The fact that I supported him, and I don't want to take free stuff. I can afford to buy any accessory I wanted. And it turns out I didn't need all these accessories anyway. Helmet's nice to get. Biking gloves are nice to get. I like having a light with me just in case you're stuck at night, which, you go certain times of the year as it gets closer to winter, you really could get stuck, in the dark. So to me, that was quite important. Yeah. So anyway, I don't know the first thing where to go. So I think my wife doesn't know anything about bikes, but she's Korean and can talk to them in Korean. So I think I'm going to have to go with my son and my wife and myself. I know a lot about bikes and just, take a chance and go to a local shop and find whatever we can find. A new trend in Korea is all these really expensive bike shops have suddenly shot up, like, Meridian, things like that. I went into one of those expensive shops. I had really high-end bikes. And so full-sized, some gravel bikes, some mountain bikes, some, street bikes. And I did buy my my phone mount for the bike from one of them. And it was a little expensive, but I felt really good shopping there. I want to support the local people wherever I can. My business is local business. So I try to support local people as much as I can. So I guess we're kind of deciding. And thanks for this channel where I can talk things through. Because quite honestly, I've been struggling with this channel, what to talk about, what not to talk about, what's too personal. Like I had a couple of videos that were kind of complaining, things that I didn't like, like in life and what's going on and things like that. And so I didn't publish them. So there's probably going to be gaps in this channel. But that's okay. Again, mostly what I do is I do it for myself. But if people want to listen, I think that's great. Because if you have a similar problem to me, I can do some research. You might have done some research. We can come to answers together. So I'd really like to build a very small community, and hasn't really worked out so far. Been a couple of views here and there, and it's great. It's fine. Whoever wants to watch is great. If it's just me, that's great. If we can help each other, that's even better. So I appreciate any comments, liking this video and comments. But yeah, I know we need it for the YouTube algorithm, but it just lets me know that, hey, maybe I'm helping some people. Maybe you can help me. So all of that's good. Riding with my son is going to be interesting. because I've been riding now for a while. So he's going to force me to slow down. And also, I care a lot about him. So I have to make sure that he's safe. You know, he tends to zone out and not watch where he's going. One of the biggest things I saw is he doesn't stay in the right lane, on the bike lane. He keeps drifting off to the left. And I remember one bike was coming right for him. And I was like, you see this, right? You see this bike coming. I don't know if he did. So I yelled really loudly, go to the right, go to the right. It's fine. You know, he's first year of junior high. He's growing up. He'll get better. But I feel like I have to go in daddy mode and totally protect him and make sure he's okay and, you know, make sure he's not going to hurt himself. So in one way, it's really fun to ride with him. In another way, I miss the zen, just zoning out and enjoying the ride. So, you know, both are good. So I think I'll have 2 or 3 days in the week just for me to ride alone. And then I'll save the weekend, Saturday or maybe Sunday, to ride with my son. You know, and I'm kind of looking forward to it. You know, I like his company. I'm sure a lot of you can relate when your children start to become your friends. You know, he's starting to be somebody I can talk to. He's starting to be somebody I get his ideas, and he has a totally different perspective. And I'm like, I never thought of that idea before. It's really fun. That's one of the reasons I'm a teacher, is I get these ideas, or my mind is kept young because my students come up with things that I have never thought of before. And also things that I've gone through, they're actually interested in because, you know, they've never gone through them before. Yeah. So why don't we listen to those 3 songs again? I really enjoyed them. I just want to hear them again. All right, so let's listen again. So again, some stirring music, which I appreciate while I'm biking. Because one of the reasons I make these videos is so we can use them at home you know? Like the videos I made last year, I really enjoyed watching them at home. So, when I'm doing my indoor biking. So next winter, I want to do a lot more, like maybe every single day, do indoor biking. And these videos are very much appreciated for indoor biking. I remember the rides and I remember what we went through. And some of the rides are going to start to be the same. But what I want to do is to start traveling with my bike, to go to different cities. And I'm going to have to start making plans that way. Maybe some weekend trips and, definitely like leave early morning Saturday and, have a full day trip. I go till 8 o'clock at night and take a 9 or 10 o'clock bus home and just start exploring some different parts of Korea. Because biking is a fantastic way to explore Korea. It's hard to bring enough stuff. I used to have 2 bags on my bike, and one bag, had all my winter stuff, winter hat and gloves and a jacket and all that. And the other one had my raincoat. So you got to have a raincoat. You just never know when it's going to absolutely pour rain. So I've got to bring that. But now that I've gotten rid of the winter jacket, I have a whole pouch of things to bring. So who knows what I'm going to end up bringing. Like I saw another channel called Probably Riding, and he always brings his whole coffee setup. That looks kind of fun, There's some kind of pot that heats things automatically. So I kind of want to do a little video on that. How does that work? So, maybe it's done by battery or something. So you bring the coffee beans, you bring a hand grinder, and some of these hand grinders are also the mug you use. So it all just fits in together. So I may try that. The problem is I like milk with my coffee. I don't like it without milk. So that could be a problem. Yeah. So again, here we are on a break, and you can see the picture's not moving very much, So maybe I should move this along a little bit more. Let me do that. Let me skip it a little bit. Well, that was a long skip. Yeah, so I did that in post. I kind of cut that out. And now we can pick up where we started talking again. Yes, I should get rid of some of those really long spots. What happened is I was taking a lunch break there, and I completely forgot to turn off the camera. So that was running the whole time I was taking off, I was taking my lunch break. Oh, forgot to turn the camera off. Do you like these kind of videos? I mean, I went through a time thinking, is this interesting to people? My ramblings and talking. But hopefully we can learn a lot from each other about biking and what we like about biking and the difficulties we're having with biking. Because I figure I want to take my biking and start enjoying it more and more and more. I want to make it just a normal part of my life. Again, I feel better when I bike. So, I just want to be normal in my biking. And so I've learned now, after doing this for a year and a half or so, that certain times of year in Korea are not very good for biking. But I still want to bike. Like during the rainy season, I've got all my gear now is totally waterproof. I have my DJI Action, Osmo Action camera that's completely waterproof. I've got a light that's totally waterproof. I've got a rain jacket that works really well. I've got my phone. I have a Galaxy S24, that's totally waterproof. So I could just be in the total rain. And I found that I really like that. I can just have the camera going in the pouring rain. And I like riding in the rain. I have no problem at all. Now again, you have to be a little careful that, don't take too dramatic of a turn. Like that's how I hurt my knee. You've heard about my little dropping of the bike. That wasn't too good at all. So, yeah, so I love riding in the rain. So I still want to be able to do that. And so what I want to do, basically on this channel is once in a while go through reviews of things on the bike. Maybe stop in the middle of my bike ride and just review some things. Just talk about them. I'm debating whether to show my face, which I've talked about several times. I really want to, and I really don't want to. I don't want to be YouTube famous. I like just talking and being anonymous, Not that it would matter in Korea because, no one speaks English here, so it's pretty safe. I'm not going to be bombarded with questions. So I want to do some videos in the future just on, different things I've learned. Like, for instance, how to be comfortable riding in the rain. So I want to, do a little research and figure it out. And I want to show the things that I use. I think one way to show my face is when I'm wearing my helmet and my sunglasses and all my kit. Yeah, you don't really see my face anyway, but you still have a connection to me. So I think that might be the answer. So maybe I'll show my face a little bit, only with a helmet on, because I'm a little shy to show my face. Yeah. So, all right. So, made some decisions today, and I really appreciate the audience for helping me with that. I've decided that I want a foldable bike for my son, a good Korean brand, or I would buy a Tern if I found the right deal. If I found a good deal for a Tern bike, I might consider that. Because Tern's a good solid bike, which I can trust. What else here? And, I'm going to continue to do these kind of videos where we just talk about biking and talk about things while I go for a ride. We get some nice views of Korea. I'm going to try to travel some in the future. I had a Mokpo video before. And again, I know very few people are watching. But please, if you could like, subscribe, if you like these kind of things, just let me know in the comments. So I don't want to play the game, but YouTube would tell more people. So I'm not trying to make money off YouTube, not trying to manipulate anything. I just honestly love biking. I want to get better at it. I want to, share what I know, share with what other people know. And I just want to enjoy the whole experience. So let's keep biking together. Let's really enjoy biking together. And hopefully my son will join me in the future. Let's enjoy together.
eyes have seen the glory of